Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, this Public Information Center is being held virtually to adhere to the current public health guidelines. Under the Integrated Accessibility Standards Regulation 2011, the Township of Center Wellington and Triton Engineering Services are committed to ensuring this presentation is accessible to all participants. If you have any accessibility requirements, please contact one of the project team members listed at the end of this presentation. Thank you for taking the time to participate in this online Public Information Center and engaging in the Municipal Class EA process. Welcome, and thank you for your interest in this project. Your input, questions, and/or comments on the material presented in this online PIC are encouraged. Upon your review of this material, please submit your input, questions, and/or comments on or before January 31st, 2022 to lwheeldon@centerwellington.ca or dlytle@tritoneng.on.ca, and a member of the project team will respond to you directly. Comments and information received will be collected under the Ontario Environmental Assessment Act and in accordance with the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and, with the exception of personal information, may be included in the project documentation and become part of public record. Contacts. Project team members are available to assist with website navigation and submission of comments by mail, phone, email to Lee Wheeldon with the Township of Center Wellington, 1 McDonald Square, Elora, Ontario, N0B1S0. On the phone at 519-846-9691 at extension 253, by fax at 519-846-2039, or by email at lwheeldon@centerwellington.ca. Alternatively, you can contact Dustin Lytle with Triton Engineering Services Limited at 105 Queen Street West, Unit 14, Fergus, Ontario, N1M1S6, on the phone at 519-843-3920 at extension 222, by fax at 519-843-1943, or by email at dlytle@tritoneng.on.ca. This project is being completed under the Municipal Class EA planning process, which is a multi-phase approach developed by the Municipal Engineers Association designed to provide municipalities with a risk-based approach to comply with the Environmental Assessment Act for both capital projects and infrastructure maintenance activities. The schedule of the project or activities will determine what phase of the Municipal Class EA process are required. To date, we have identified the opportunity statement, which forms Phase 1 of the Municipal Class EA process. We are now within Phase 2 of the process as we have identified alternative solutions, selected the appropriate schedule, taken inventory on the natural, social, and economic environment, identified the impact of the alternative solutions on the environment, and any suggested mitigation measures, evaluated the alternative solutions, and identified a recommended solution. This Public Information Center forms part of Phase 2 of the process. Following this PIC, the preferred solution is selected and reviewed to confirm the choice of the schedule. Project background. The Township of Center Wellington owns property east of the existing limit of Dickson Drive in Fergus. In order to facilitate development of these lands, the Township is proposing to construct an extension of the existing Dickson Drive, including servicing and stormwater management facilities required to support future development. This project is required for the development of municipal serviced, water and sanitary, commercial and institutional employment lands, and a multi-use path within the Center Wellington Business Park in Fergus. The development of these lands will allow for continued economic growth and promote a live-work opportunity within the township. Opportunity statement. Based on the project background, the following problem statement, or opportunity statement, was identified as part of Phase 1 of the Class EA process. The extension of Dickson Drive east of Glengarry Crescent is required for the development of municipally serviced, water and sanitary, industrial, commercial, and institutional employment lands, and a multi-use path within the Center Wellington Business Park in Fergus to allow for continued economic growth and a live-work opportunity within the township. Center Wellington Official Plan. The problem statement was developed to be in accordance with many aspects described within the Center Wellington Official Plan, such as Municipal Services, Section C6, Stormwater Management, Section C7, Transportation, including the development of a multi-use pathway to promote cycling, section C8, specifically C8.11. Community improvement through development of otherwise vacant lands, section C9. Higher standards and physical design, section C15. Economic development, section C18. More information regarding the official plan can be found on the Township website at www.centerwellington.ca/en/doing-business/planning. Business Park Strategy. The Township enlisted McSweeney & Associates to prepare a target, sector, and industry analysis to review local and regional economic and industry trends and provide recommendations. Based on this analysis, recommendations were provided regarding the types of industries that Township can expect will be interested in developing lands within the Dickson Drive Extension area. Additionally, this report provides planning, design, infrastructure, and servicing recommendations on the permitted uses within the area, which recommend the area be limited to a business park to establish a mixed office/light industry, high-quality business park environment. The business park zone is intended to present a high standard of building, landscape, and streetscape design. Cultural Heritage Evaluation. A cultural heritage evaluation was initiated to determine the cultural heritage value of the property using criteria from Ontario Regulation 906, Ontario Heritage Act, and the Township of Centre Wellington's Official Plan 2013. This evaluation determined that certain aspects of the existing farmhouse on the property should be preserved due to its cultural heritage significance. Archaeological Assessment. A Stage 1 archaeological assessment of the site was also initiated, which involved review of previously registered archaeological sites and its proximity to natural resources along with historical settlement trends. This assessment indicated there was potential for the presence of both Indigenous and Euro-Canadian archaeological resources on the subject property. Therefore, a Stage 2, which is a physical examination of the site, archaeological assessment has also been initiated in accordance with the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Cultural Industries 2011 standards and guidelines for consultant archaeologicals. Environmental Impact Assessment. In the spring of 2021, an environmental impact study was initiated that focused on characterizing the existing natural heritage features within the study area, including mapping of significant natural features, wetlands, breeding grounds, etc. The outcomes of that study have identified some constraints, which will be used to inform the detailed design and development criteria. Geotechnical and hydrogeological assessments. Geotechnical and hydrogeological assessments were initiated to establish design requirements for the site and inform any potential design/development constraints. 9 boreholes were drilled on the site, with samples taken for laboratory analysis to determine soil characteristics. The geotechnical assessment did not yield any significant findings or areas of concern. Additionally, continuous groundwater monitoring was established to determine groundwater levels across the site. Traffic Impact Study. In order to determine the expected impact of constructing the extension of Dickson Drive, a traffic impact study has been completed that monitored traffic at 4 locations: St. David Street North and Gordon Street, Gordon Street and Gartshore Street, Garifraxis Street East and Gartshore Street, First Line, and County Road 19. The initial findings of this study determined that the connection to First Line will not require any external intersection improvements in the short term. As the properties fronting this road develop, future intersection improvements have been identified depending on the size and type of the proposed developments. Individual traffic impact studies should be prepared based on the actual development proposals to identify the timing of these improvements. Alternatives considered to address the problem statement. Option 1. Option 1 proposes the Dickson Drive is extended to First Line with an additional cul-de-sac extended south. Typical urban section with curbs and gutters, multi-use pathway connecting Dog Park to the Elora Cataract Trailway, stormwater management provided by way of below-grade infrastructure, including catch basins, storm sewers, oil gut separators, and below-grade runoff storage chambers and/or super pipes, and a low-slope polishing swale. Option 2. Option 2 proposes Dickson Drive extended to the First Line with an additional cul-de-sac extended south. Typical urban section with curbs and gutters, multi-use pathway connecting the dog park to the Elora Cataract Trailway, with stormwater management provided by way of both below-grade and above-grade infrastructure, including catch basins, stormwater sewers, oil grit separators with above-grade runoff storage, aka ponds, and a low-slope polishing swale. Option 3. Option 3 proposes Dickson Drive extended to first line with an additional cul-de-sac extended south. Typical rural section with ditches, multi-use pathway connecting dog park to the Lower Cataract Trailway, and stormwater management provided by way of above-grade infrastructure, including ditches, culverts, minimal catch basins, and storm sewers, and above-grade runoff storage, aka ponds, and a low-slope polishing swale. Option 4. Dickson Drive extended to first line with an additional cul-de-sac extended south. Typical rural sections with ditches. Multi-use pathway is not provided. Stormwater management provided by way of above-grade infrastructure, including ditches, culverts, and minimal catch basins and storm sewers, above-grade runoff storage, aka ponds, and a low-slope polishing swale. Evaluation of alternatives. Based on the options previously described, there are 5 alternatives being evaluated. This includes options 1 through 4, as previously shown, and the 5th alternative, do nothing. The alternatives are evaluated based on their potential impact to the following: technical environment, cultural environment, social environment, economic environment, and natural environment. The evaluation chart can be found by visiting the Township CW Connect website at www.connectcw.ca. Technical environment. The alternatives are evaluated based on their expected impact to the technical environment as follows. Ability to address the problem statement. Alternatives 1 through 4 will address the problem statement. Alternative 5 does not. Road geometry and vehicular safety. Alternatives 1 and 2 will require a 22-meter right-of-way width designed in accordance with applicable design standards. Alternatives 3 and 4 will require a 26-meter right-of-way width and will be designed in accordance with applicable design standards. There are no anticipated impacts associated with Alternative 5. Emergency access. Alternatives 1 through 4 provide for a direct east-west route, improving emergency access to the existing Dickson Drive in northeastern quadrant of Fergus. Alternative 5 does not provide emergency or secondary access for the existing industries on Dickson Drive. Tactical environment continued. Existing roads and services. Alternatives 1 through 4 will increase the service life of municipal infrastructure on Gartshore Street due to reduced dependency. The additional water main connection south to the Lower Cataract Rail Trail will provide opportunity for future connection and improved service to the existing/future developments. The existing water main and sanitary sewers on Dickson Drive will provide efficient use of existing service to the site. Alternative 5 will result in inefficient use of the existing municipal services on existing Dickson Drive. Proposed streetscaping and standard of design. As described within the Business Park Strategy Report, the area is intended to present a high standard of building, landscape, and streetscape design. Alternatives 1 and 2 provide this by way of curb and gutters and multi-use pathways for pedestrian connectivity. Alternative 3 provides the multi-use pathways, however does not provide curbs and gutters. Alternatives 4 does not provide curbs and gutters or the multi-use pathway. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Technical environment continued. Stormwater management. Alternatives 1 and 2 will convey storm runoff via contained sewers and manholes. Alternatives 3 and 4 will convey stormwater runoff via open ditches and culverts with minimal number of storm sewers and manholes, thus requiring less frequent, although disruptive, maintenance activities. Alternatives 1 through 4 will provide stormwater treatment by way of oil grit separators and low-slope polishing swales. Cleaning of OGSs will need to be added to the township annual maintenance programs, however can be done with little disruption to the naturalized environment. Alternative 1 provides stormwater storage by way of below-grade storage chambers or structures that will require annual, non-disruptive maintenance and inspection with little disturbance to the naturalized environment. Alternatives 2 through 4 provide stormwater storage via open ponds that will require annual inspection and costly, although infrequent, disruptive cleaning operations that will disrupt the naturalized environment. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Technical environment continued. Traffic and pedestrian safety. Alternatives 1 through 4 provide alternate routes for access to the existing industrial park and northeast quadrant of Fergus. there is an increased safety concern to pedestrians using the existing trail crossing on First Line due to the additional traffic. Traffic on Gartshire through the residential area, trail, and park may decrease, thereby reducing associated traffic and pedestrian safety concerns. Cultural environment. The alternatives are evaluated based on their expected impact to the cultural environment as follows. Archaeological resources. Impact of alternatives 1 through 4 are pending the results of the Stage 2 archaeological assessment. However, impacts are expected to be minimal. If any archaeological resources are found, detailed design will accommodate to mitigate any impact. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Built heritage and cultural landscape. Alternatives 1 through 4 will have limited short-term impacts to the existing farmscape, which may be mitigated by planning and staging construction activities away from the residences as feasible. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Social environment. The alternatives are evaluated based on their expected impact to the social environment as follows. Temporary construction impacts. Alternatives 1 through 4 will result in noise and dust generated during construction activities. This will require mitigation, although impacts will be temporary and limited. There are no anticipated issues with respect to traffic management for work to be completed within the study area. However, there is potential for temporary limited impacts on local roads due to construction-related traffic. Haul routes to be used outside of the study area during construction activities will be selected to minimize impact on local roads and traffic. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Social environment continued. Land use and traffic. Alternatives 1 through 4 will increase the available land for economic development and will result in increased tax base and efficient use of existing infrastructure. No reduction in the current level of service of the studied intersections has been identified. Further traffic studies may be warranted as the lands fronting the proposed extension are developed, depending on the size and type of the proposed developments. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Social environment. The alternatives are evaluated based on their expected impact to the social environment as follows. Indigenous communities. Consultation with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Ministry of Aboriginal Affairs, Ministry of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation, Métis Nation of Ontario, Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada, Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, Haudenosaunee Confederacy, Historic Saugeen Métis, Saugeen First Nation, has been ongoing from the onset of the EA process. Consultation will continue through the EA process to ensure appropriate mitigation measures are implemented if impacts are anticipated. Recreational amenity. Limited impacts are anticipated to result from alternatives 1 through 4 with the operation of the proposed project, given the environmental setting and current use of the study area. Traffic and pedestrian safety measures will be implemented as needed. Multi-use pathway networks will be expanded by this project. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Social environment continued. Visual amenity. Existing open space areas will be disturbed during the construction required for alternatives 1 through 4 and eventually changed to a developed landscape. Development of lands fronting the extension will be required to provide landscaping to naturalize the area to the extent feasible. Alternative 5 will have no impacts. Economic environment. The alternatives are evaluated based on their expected impact to the economic environment as follows. Local economy. Alternatives 1 through 4 will provide an increase in accessible business development property for continued economic growth and to further promote live and work opportunities within the township. Capital cost. The estimated cost of construction for the alternatives are as follows. Alternative option 1, roads and drainage and stormwater management, $1,860,000. Servicing, water and sanitary, $800,000. Miscellaneous items, engineering, contingency, and HST, $945,000. For alternative option 2, roads and drainage and stormwater management, $1,859,000. For servicing, water and sanitary, $800,000. For miscellaneous items, engineering, contingency, and HST, $945,000. For alternative option 3, roads, drainage, and stormwater management, $1,530,000. Servicing, water and sanitary, $800,000. Miscellaneous items, engineering, contingency, and HST, $830,000. For alternative option 4, roads, drainage, and stormwater management, $1,436,000. For servicing, water and sanitary, $800,000. For miscellaneous items, engineering, contingency, and HST, $800,000. And for the alternative of do nothing, there are no associated costs. Natural environment. The alternatives are evaluated based on their expected impact to the natural environment as follows. Wetland. Road alignments within alternatives 1 through 4 do not enter into the expected wetland or its buffer. Where the proposed multi-use pathway enters the wetland buffer in alternatives 1 through 3, mitigation measures are required to minimize the potential negative impacts to the wetland. Potential negative impacts include lowering of the water table, thus affecting certain vegetation, species, and potentially creating a barrier for reptile and amphibian movement. These impacts can be effectively mitigated using groundwater recharge strategies on the development sites and the use of permeable trail surface treatments. The proposed stormwater management facility will provide quality and quantity control to ensure no negative impacts to the wetland or other receiving features. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Natural environment continued. Built heritage and cultural landscape. Alternatives 1 through 4 will avoid existing heritage features to reduce any potential disturbance. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Stormwater runoff from the area. Long-term impacts of alternatives 1 through 4 are limited through the implementation of stormwater management facilities and other mitigation measures to maintain or improve stormwater runoff, quantity, and quality. This will be provided by way of sediment and erosion control, stormwater management best practices, and establishment of an operation and monitoring program. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Natural environment continued. Water quality and source water protection. Mitigation measures are required to maintain or improve stormwater runoff quality from the Dickson Drive Extension, thereby limiting and avoiding anticipated long-term impacts such as negative thermal influences, sedimentation, and containment runoff from road salt, oil, and gasoline. Changing the property from agricultural use will reduce some existing contaminant runoff, i.e. sediment, nutrients, phosphorus, pesticides, herbicides, etc. Alternatives 1 and 2 will convey stormwater via closed sewers and manholes, which provide source water protection by creating a barrier between groundwater and the road runoff. Alternatives 3 and 4 will contain stormwater via open ditches and culverts with minimal number of storm sewers and manholes. This will require less maintenance, however offers little source water protection from potential contaminant-bearing runoff. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Natural environment continued. Sensitive/listed species within the study area. Consideration of standard environmental management strategies to reduce and/or eliminate the risk and disturbance will be given during detailed design within alternatives 1 through 4. Limited long-term impacts are anticipated following construction and restoration given the application of appropriate design and implementation of the mitigation measures. Minimal impacts are anticipated from the operation of the proposed works. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Trees and natural vegetation. Infrastructure has been proposed, designed, and/or located such that there is no expected impact to the existing trees and natural vegetation within alternatives 1 through 4. Alternative 5 will have no impact. Natural environment continued. Effect on use of area by wildlife. Alternatives 1 through 4 will need to follow the recommendations outlined in the EIS study. This will result in minor impact to the wildlife. This includes completing all vegetation removals outside the Environment Canada breeding bird nesting window, April 1st to August 31st. If removals must take place during the nesting window, a bird nest survey is to be completed to determine locations of active nests prior to construction works, followed by installation of erosion and sediment control, ESC, fence to restrict construction activities in these areas. Nest protection zones will need to be created where active bird nests are found. Air quality related to road emissions. Alternatives 1 through 4 will result in increased exhaust emissions into the airshed within the study area as a result of the traffic. However, due to the setting of the area, exposure to the general population is limited. The impact from odors, noise, traffic, and air quality on the local population will be the responsibility of future businesses in the area, which will be policed by governmental regulations and controls. The preferred alternative. Based on the above, Alternative 1 has been selected as the preliminary preferred alternative, given its ability to address the opportunity statement, provide a high standard of building, landscape, and streetscape design, and provide an improved barrier between the surface runoff and local groundwater by way of contained stormwater management conveyances and storage features. Stormwater management and maintenance activities will need to be more frequent than those required for the other alternatives, however, will result in a less disturbance to the naturalized environment. The capital cost is marginally greater than alternatives 2 through 4. Thank you. The preliminary version of all supporting studies referenced throughout this presentation can be found by visiting the Township CW Connect website at www.connectcw.ca. Questions and comments can be submitted by contacting one of the following team members: Lee Wheeldon with the Township of Centre Wellington at 1 McDonald Square, Elora, Ontario, N0B1S0, on the phone at 519-846-9691 at extension 253, by fax at 519-846-2039, or by email at lwheeldon@centrewellington.ca. Alternatively, you can contact Dustin Lytle with Triton Engineering Services Limited at 105 Queen Street West, Unit 14, Fergus, Ontario, N1M1S6, or on the phone at 519-843-3920 at extension 222, by fax at 519-843-1943, or by email at dlytle@tritoneng.on.ca.